Hey guys, Dan Lotz here of 922 Films, coming with 10 feature film ideas, basically prompts for you to create a feature film. I've come up with a couple interesting ideas and hopefully they inspire you to get out and create your own content in feature films. The very first one is doing a feature film with a limited cast or crew. I just finished a feature film called Sheep Theater, and I basically made the film entirely alone for the most part. And it was really interesting to do a film entirely alone because it really puts you in the mindset of being a filmmaker and learning each and every aspect of filmmaking. Because I had to learn how to record audio properly, to do cinematography, to learn acting, and all of this encompassed into one film. And it was really, really fun and a challenge. It was challenging every time to set up all the lights and do all the work that a cinematographer or an AC would do. It was really, really a good process and it was a lot of fun, but it was very challenging at the same time to come up with solutions like, hey, how do I make this feel like there's more characters in the film? So I came up with puppets. I decided to use puppets as the other characters, but I voiced and acted and did all the puppetry for those characters as well. So doing a single person film might be a really good idea, something that can really get your creativity and juices flowing. The second prompt would be to do an improv feature film. This is a really good example of one way that you can get into filmmaking in a different way if you're not much of a script writer, is to do an improv feature film. I did that with my feature film Chlorine, but I really want to highlight the example of Joel Haver's feature film Island. It's a film that mixes narrative with improv, and I thought it was such an interesting way to get into filmmaking because it frees you from the burden of creating a script. If you're not much of a writer, finding real moments in the world and then bringing them into a narrative might be one way for you to really get into the story in a different way. So I think if you really have trouble kind of coming up with and getting writer's block, an improv feature film is really a lot of fun. And I've done 2 improv feature films right now, and both of them have been a lot of learning and a lot of creativity that is kind of uninhibited by writing a script. So I think that might be one way to really get you excited to make more feature filmmaking content, is to make a feature film that's improv. The third idea is to do a movie in a set amount of time. So give yourself a month or 15 days, 2 weeks, maybe even a day if you're a crazy person. I know there are some people that have done feature film in one day, but I think this would be a really interesting idea. And I know these 2 guys from this company called Doomed Productions, Jordan and Ethan, I think that's their names. And they made a feature film in 15 days, basically from stem to stern, from production to editing to distribution. I believe it was 15 days in total. Maybe I'm wrong. But it was really, really interesting to see these guys create a film in such a short time and for it to be a really good product. I think that giving yourself a very manufactured and specific timeline in terms of the making and distribution of that product is a very interesting way to get into making a film. And I think it, again, frees you of the shackles of like, hey, this is going to take a year or 2 years or 6 months. If you give yourself a manufactured 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, 15-day timeline, it gets you focused on making a film here and now. And I think that limited window really frees you to do a lot of different ideas with that, because you now have to think in a very small and specific sort of way. The fourth prompt would be to do a feature film in a genre you're not comfortable with. When I tackled my feature film, Sheep Theater, it was a horror comedy, and I really don't genuinely watch horror comedies for the most part. I do like Shaun of the Dead, that's a great film, but it's not really the genre I like to play in or to make content in. But when I started making the film, I thought it would be a unique challenge for me to get into that project and do something that I was not comfortable with, get out of my sort of shell. I had always been making crime films, and I probably always will make crime films because that's kind of the type of genre that I gravitate to and enjoy. But if you want to be a better filmmaker, a rounded filmmaker, I think do a comedy or a romance or a horror film or a crime film, whatever genre you don't naturally gravitate to, do that genre, because I think there's a lot of merit to that idea. Point number 5 is kind of like an indie classic, which is act in your own indie film as the lead character. I think every filmmaker kind of goes through this at some point, whether it's shorts or features. I think for features, I think it's a necessary thing to do in order to become a better director. I think acting in your own film, especially in a lead role, I think really gives you a sort of gravitas and understanding for what an actor goes through. Whether or not you're going to be good in it, you might be terrible. I've acted in 2 feature films, and I think I'm decent in both of them. But you really learn a lot about what actors have to go through and where they have to go to in order to get these emotions and feelings out. And I think for every director, it's a very, very creative way to get yourself back into the process of making films is by acting yourself. You reignite a different part of your creativity with this specific idea. Now, I know a lot of us are indie filmmakers and a lot of us champion doing our original ideas. But I think another good one would be to do more of the Hollywood standard approach, which is have someone else write your script. It might bring you into sort of a different perspective as a filmmaker, because so many times we're conditioned to use our own ideas because those are the ideas we gravitate to. But if you have to pick another script and get involved in it and fall in love with that idea, I think there's a lot of merit to what that could create. And I think you'll create a very different and unique approach to your usual films because you're not in the mindset of being the writer. And so I think a lot of times there's a successful pairing between a writer and a director that you wouldn't really get if it was just the director writing his own script himself. So this might be another good way to get into the mindset. I know a lot of indie filmmakers are very precious with using their ideas, especially myself. But I think we all can learn a little bit from it, and it would be good for some of us to maybe go with a writer one of these times and have someone else write the script rather than us always being the writer-director duo that we always imagine ourselves to be. This next idea is more high concept. It's basically creating a feature film based off an album or a piece of artwork. I think this would be really interesting, and it's something I've wanted to try for many years. And I think I'm going to try during my 12 Features project, which is making a whole film based on the visuals you get from listening to an album or a piece of artwork or a series of artwork that you see in a gallery. I think it would be really interesting if you as a filmmaker saw these visuals or heard these type of songs and it gave you a specific new idea, not necessarily a film that would be set in that universe, but would be inspired by those ideas that you get from an album or a piece of artwork. So that would be really cool, and I would love to see a filmmaker do that. I don't know if anyone has. I feel like there's probably been one of those type of films, but I think it would be really unique for indie filmmakers to tackle something like that. This next idea is based off Orson Welles and how he created his film The Other Side of the Wind and how it was sort of a commentary on other styles. I think aping other styles in a feature film would be very interesting, especially for commentary and critique. In his film, The Other Side of the Wind, there's a movie within the movie that was kind of a critique, a sort of parody, and also an homage at the same time to a specific style of movies that were happening in the 70s. I think it would be really interesting if indie filmmakers tackled a movie that maybe either A, critiqued or gave an homage to a different style, aped a specific style in order to tell a specific storyline. I think there would be a lot of interesting ideas you could come up with as a filmmaker if you were going to, let's say, work within the style of Kubrick or the style of Hitchcock or Nolan or any specific filmmaker. It'd be really interesting if you were able to do that. And I think that would be such a cool premise for a jumping off point into a different feature film idea, is to ape another style, maybe just for part of the film or for the whole film. And my final 2 ideas are kind of in the same vein. One is making a one-room movie. I think every filmmaker does it at some point in their life. It's basically one location, a few people, and you put them in a room and basically you have them either argue, fight, drama, horror, whatever it is, using one small location to tell the whole film. I think everyone kind of goes through this. With my film Cheap Theater, I kind of had this. Most of the film took place in my house. and it was a lot of fun to work in that limited environment. I think it's a way to stretch yourself to work with one location. You can go as specific as, something like you're in a grave, or as, general as you're in one house, one location that has multiple rooms. So I think get creative with that idea. Find out where, as a filmmaker, you can use limited space for a feature film. I'm actually making a feature film that has a limited location, which is all being set in a car. And this leads me into my other point and my final prompt, which is make a one-take feature film. This one is kind of more on the gimmicky scale, but I think there's a lot of interesting creativity that can be found in making a one-take feature film. A film where you press record and then 90 minutes later you hit the end button and you have a feature film. It's probably the most rough and the most shoddy idea of all of these ones. And it's probably the one that has the least applicable nature to most people. But I think it would be really interesting, and it pushes the sort of like craziness of how easy it is to make a feature film now. That literally, if you hit the record button and the end button for 90 minutes, you ultimately have a feature film. Is it good? Probably not. But if you can come up with a unique story within those 90 minutes, you will have a really great movie, because I think a great story will supersede any subpar cinematography, and I think a one-take movie really pushes you to focus on what is within the story that we are watching right now. So these have been 10 prompts by 92 Films for feature film ideas. I would love to see some of you guys tackle one of these prompts. If any of you do, send me the feature film and I'll definitely watch it. I'm really, really excited to see if anyone would actually do this. I might do some of these ideas. I have done some of these ideas already, and I think there is a lot of merit to getting outside of your comfort zone. And I think as filmmakers, a lot of times we want to stay within what we like to do, but if you get outside of your comfort zone, you'll probably make stuff that you really, really enjoy. So thank you so much. My feature film, Sheep Theater, is out right now for free on YouTube. You can check it out. Please subscribe, and we'll be posting videos basically every other day or every day, depending on how active I am. So if you've missed any of my videos, go check them out, and I'll see you next time.